The crown prince, my childhood sweetheart, broke our betrothal to marry that woman from another world. Little did he know that at that very moment, I carried his father's royal heir within me. I turned and married into the imperial palace, becoming his mother and bearing his legitimate son. Now, his position as crown prince will likely be handed over to his own younger brother. Main text: I died on the day of my 15th birthday, the day I came of age. The coming-of-age ceremony for the sole daughter of the Marquis of Yongi was, naturally, a grand and splendid affair. But in the end, I was an orphan, a girl without parents. That year, the Liao army attacked Yeqing. My father, the Marquis of Yongi, the Grand Marshal of Yeqing, led his men in a desperate defense for dozens of days and nights. Reinforcements were within sight, yet the city still fell. My parents perished with Yeqing, leaving only me, a 5-year-old, utterly alone. His Majesty personally carried me out from the pile of corpses. He regarded my father as his own brother. Upon hearing Yeqing's distress, he rushed reinforcements day and night, yet he still arrived too late. I remember it all so clearly. Back then, I knelt beside my parents, utterly bewildered. How could a child like me understand death? All I knew was to push at them, crying out, "Father! Mother! Wake up! Wake up and look at Wan Wan." The thunderous hoofbeats of Liao soldiers grew louder. A towering warhorse charged straight toward me, hooves raised to trample. Suddenly, a swift rider burst from the side. Leaning low, he swept me up in his arms, shielding me tightly. In the next instant, his spear flashed like lightning. With a fierce thrust, he impaled a snarling Liao soldier right on the spot. Warm blood splattered all over my face. I froze in terror, unable even to cry. Just then, an unusually gentle yet powerful voice whispered close to my ear, instantly banishing all my fear. "Don't be afraid, my child. I am here." He even used his blood-stained sleeve to carefully wipe the blood from my face. Later, His Majesty brought me back to the palace and entrusted me to Consort Shu. After Emperor Jin Yuan ascended the throne, he devoted all his attention to state affairs and rarely visited the harem, so he had few children. Over the years, he had only one son, Xiao Jing, born to Consort Shu. His Majesty told Consort Shu, "This is Princess Huijing's daughter. From now on, keep her by your side and teach her well. When she comes of age, she shall be betrothed to Jing. This is what our Xiao family owes her." Consort Shu's treatment of me was not exactly affectionate, yet her upbringing of me over the years was beyond reproach. She raised me as her future daughter-in-law, hiring the strictest wet nurse to instruct me. Music, chess, calligraphy, painting, and the rules of the harem, I had to learn everything, without a single day's rest. My training was grueling. Even when I fell ill, I dared not take a day off. Not for any other reason, but because once, I overheard the Consort Shu speaking with her trusted palace maid, "My Jinger is destined to inherit the throne. How could a helpless orphan girl like her ever become the mother of the nation?" The maid whispered softly, "But His Majesty favors her." The Consort Shu fell silent for a moment before replying indifferently, "Very well. Let her fate be her own." After a pause, she added, her voice low but each word distinct, "Have Lady Li keep a closer watch. If she is to be empress, what harm is a little hardship? She must surpass all the noble ladies in the capital to be worthy of standing beside my son. Xiao Jing doesn't like me, I know that all too well." Though His Majesty betrothed us long ago, Consort Shu feared I'd distract Xiao Jing from his studies. All these years, she's barely let us meet. Whenever Xiao Jing came to the palace, Consort Shu always found a way to keep me away. So while the world calls us childhood sweethearts, in truth we're strangers sharing that label, utterly unfamiliar with each other. Not long ago, Xiao Jing underwent his coming-of-age ceremony and was immediately named crown prince. This sent the court into a frenzy, with everyone speculating who would become crown princess. Over the years, I'd built a reputation as a talented scholar in the capital. Combined with my upbringing under Consort Shu's care, people secretly speculated I was the predestined crown princess. Little did they know Xiao Jing despised the prim, proper young ladies of the capital most of all. The more renowned I became, the more textbook perfect I seemed, the more he disliked me. This displeasure reached its peak the moment he met Shen Yuan. That day, my maid Xianger whispered to me, I heard the Marquis of the state's eldest daughter, who was raised at her maternal grandparents' estate outside Dongqing, has just returned to the capital. The moment she appeared, she stunned the entire capital with a sword dance so spirited and dashing it captivated countless young masters from noble families. Our crown prince has been utterly smitten with Shen Yuanyi lately. Silk robes, brocades, and rare treasures have been flowing into the Duke of the State's residence like a river. Miss, you are the one destined to be crown princess. How can His Highness treat you this way? Xiang'er's voice grew angrier with each word. Let's not rush. We'll see what His Majesty has to say before deciding our next move, I soothed Xiang'er. His Majesty must have heard the rumors too. The next day, he summoned Xiao Jing and me to the imperial study. His cold gaze swept over Xiao Jing as he declared, "Wanner is the orphan daughter of the valiant Marquis. Her father's loyalty and valor remain etched in my memory. When she was young, though I did not issue a formal decree, I gave my word, my golden promise, to betroth her to you. This promise weighs heavier than 9 tripods. Once Lin Wan comes of age, I shall issue an edict to grant you two a royal marriage. Remember well, obey the imperial command and treat Wanner with kindness. Should you mistreat her in the slightest, do not say I did not warn you." After leaving the imperial study, Xiao Jing's face had turned pale with fury. I could tell at a glance that his heart must be burning like oil doused with fire, consumed by unbearable agony. Who was Shen Yuan? She was the cherished jewel of the Duke of Zhen's household. Such a precious and noble soul, with such lofty aspirations, how could she possibly humble herself to become a secondary wife to a helpless orphan like me? I looked at him and said softly, "Xiao Jing, if you truly dislike this match, perhaps I should speak to His Majesty and withdraw it? It would spare you and Miss Yuanyi from any further awkwardness. You're willing to call off the engagement?" Xiao Jing whipped his head around to stare at me, his eyes filled with disbelief, as if he couldn't fathom I'd willingly relinquish the crown princess position that was practically within my grasp. Yes, I met his gaze, my tone unwavering. On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, I will speak with His Majesty. Yet even if I was willing to let go, Consort Shu and Xiao Jing still refused to spare me. On the day of the ceremony, the banquet had just begun. I returned to my chambers to change into the ceremonial attire. Zhang, the matron attendant to the empress, brought a bowl of lotus seed soup, saying it would soothe my throat. Shortly after drinking it, my entire body felt as though it were on fire, as if I'd fallen into a fiery pit. My limbs went limp, and I couldn't muster a shred of strength. Only then did I realize, the maids and servants who'd been attending inside and outside the room had vanished without a trace. A man reeking of alcohol stumbled in, none other than the notoriously infamous Prince Ning of the capital. That old bastard, relying on his status as the late emperor's uncle and his high standing, ran rampant in the capital, committing countless acts of bullying men and oppressing women. Falling into his hands, what chance of survival did I have? Knowing escape was impossible, my spirit utterly crushed, I mustered my last ounce of strength. With a violent jerk, I tore the hairpin from my hair and, without a second thought, plunged it deep into my heart. My body died, but my soul lingered, drifting aimlessly in the world for a long time. I watched as the guards rushed in, and later, Emperor Jin Yuan himself arrived. My maid Xiang'er threw herself upon my corpse, weeping with heart-wrenching anguish. How cruel the consort Shu and the crown prince are. The young mistress clearly stated she would renounce the marriage to fulfill the crown prince's wishes. Why must they seek to destroy us completely? Witnessing my pitiful state, Emperor Jin Yuan's eyes blazed crimson. His rage soared skyward, threatening to reduce the entire palace to ashes. He ordered the execution of Prince Ning and stripped both Consort Shu and Xiao Jing of their titles. Finally, he sent me back to my hometown in Yeqing, where I was laid to rest beside my parents. Buried alongside me in the earth was that hairpin, soaked through with blood. It was the one he personally pinned into my hair during my coming-of-age ceremony. That hairpin. I had loved it so much. What a pity. When I opened my eyes again, I had somehow returned to the very day of that ceremony. I had just finished drinking the bowl of lotus seed soup handed to me by Nanny Zhang. Staring at the empty bowl in my hand, I felt both amused and exasperated. Heaven above, if you're granting me a second chance at life, why couldn't you have let me return a few hours earlier? Now that I've swallowed the poison, won't I just have to die again? The courtyard must be surrounded by the consort shoes men. My body feels weak and limp. Run? Not a chance. But if I don't escape now, that bastard Prince Ning will be here any moment. Steeling myself, I pricked my palm with the tip of my hairpin. The sharp sting brought me back to my senses. I glanced at the bed, piled several soft pillows together, pulled the quilt over them, and lowered the canopy. Then I curled up and slipped beneath the bed. No sooner had I hidden myself than the door burst open. Just like in my past life, Prince Ning stumbled in, drunk as a skunk. He squinted around the room, spotted the bulge under the low-hanging canopy, and immediately let out a lecherous chuckle. Ha ha ha, little beauty in such a hurry? Already settled in? How considerate. He staggered forward, lunging toward the bed. Now. Gritting my teeth, I rolled out from beneath the bed. Summoning every ounce of strength, I grabbed the large vase from the nearby table and smashed it down hard onto the back of his head. A dull thud echoed. He didn't even grunt. Like a wall, he crashed to the floor, motionless. Fearing he wasn't dead, I steeled myself and delivered 2 more blows. After all that, I collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath, utterly drained. The first hurdle was cleared. But before I could catch my breath, the drug's effects kicked in again. An indescribable heat and tingling sensation surged from my lower abdomen, instantly spreading throughout my body, unbearably agonizing. In my despair, a figure suddenly flashed into my mind. In my past life, he had arrived so quickly, he must not be far away. Given the current situation, only he could save me. I forced myself to crawl to the guzheng, gritting my teeth as I plucked the strings. Just as darkness closed in and I was about to collapse, the door burst open with a violent kick. A figure darted inside. "Don't be afraid, Warner. I'm here." That familiar voice felt like a lifeline. My entire body relaxed as I felt myself embraced by strong arms. My heart, suspended in midair, finally settled. Darkness engulfed my vision, and I passed out completely. When I opened my eyes again, I dimly saw the bright yellow canopy above me. I was actually lying on the dragon bed in Jianqing Palace. A jolt of terror shot through me, and I tried to sit up abruptly. "Don't move." A warm, large hand pressed me back down firmly. "The residual poison hasn't cleared yet. Lie still." Emperor Jinyuan's voice carried an unquestionable tenderness as he gently held my shoulders. Eunuch Chao entered carrying a bowl of medicine, his voice still tinged with lingering fear. "Goodness, Miss Wan. That was a hair's breadth away from disaster today. If His Majesty hadn't noticed something amiss in your qin playing, how could he have arrived so perfectly timed?" Emperor Jin Yuan helped me lean against the headboard, took the bowl, scooped up a spoonful, blew gently on it, and brought it to my lips. Warner has never been able to bear the sounds of battle since childhood. How could she possibly play a piece like Ambush on 10 sides, filled with such bloodshed and slaughter? His tone was low, carrying a cold certainty that seemed to see through everything. Moreover, that qin melody was weak and feeble, the fingering light and uncertain. It was absolutely not her usual style. My heart clenched, and I struggled to speak. "Your Majesty. Warner. In self-defense. Accidentally killed Prince Ning." "Prince Ning?" Emperor Jin Yuan cut me off, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth, yet his gaze remained unfathomably deep. He drowned himself in the clear grace pool after drinking too much, his head striking the lake stones. "What does that have to do with you, Warner?" His words were light as a feather, yet they struck my heart like a boulder. Tears instantly broke through the dam, streaming down uncontrollably. He actually brushed off the death of a prince so casually for my sake. Just then, Physician Zhang hurried in, head bowed. "Quickly examine Warner. Is the poison completely purged?" Emperor Jin Yuan's voice carried palpable urgency. Dr. Zhang carefully took my pulse, concentrating intently on his diagnosis. Time ticked by. Cold sweat gradually beaded on his forehead, his face growing paler by the moment. Finally, he withdrew his hand and knelt with a thud. His voice trembled as he stammered, Your Majesty. The love poison Miss Wan has been struck with. I'm afraid it cannot be fully cured. My medicine can only temporarily suppress the poison. Within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, it It will likely flare up again. Then what is to be done? Emperor Jin Yuan's voice suddenly grew heavy. Dr. Zhang bowed his head even lower, his voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz, unless the act of marital intimacy is performed. Otherwise, there is no cure. My heart plummeted, as if plunging into an ice cellar. Out, the emperor's voice was low, yet carried an unquestionable weight of authority. Eunuch Chao and physician Zhang retreated as if granted a pardon, scrambling out in haste. The chamber held only him and me, and a suffocating silence. Perhaps. Emperor Yuan's voice grew hushed. His gaze lowered slightly, and an almost imperceptible flush tinged his ears. I shall summon the crown prince? The crown prince? I nearly leapt upright in shock, my voice cracking. That love poison. It was delivered by Consort Shu's personal wet nurse. Overwhelming grief and terror flooded me, tears streaming down my face. She's determined to see me dead. Your Majesty. Wanner would rather die than have any further dealings with that mother and son. Such a thing? Emperor Jin Yuan's gaze turned icy, the air around him thickening with tension. Consort Shu. How dare she? It is my negligence for failing to restrain the harem, allowing these demons to cause trouble and wrong you, Wanner. He leaned closer, his voice heavy with apology yet utterly solemn. This matter, I shall see it resolved. He paused, seemingly suppressing his anger. When he spoke again, his tone took on a hint of coaxing, then, is there someone in Wanner's heart? Be it a noble prince or a newly passed scholar. He paused, his gaze locking deeply upon me, carrying an unquestionable promise. Whatever you desire, my dear, I shall find for you at once. Is that acceptable? My dear. I forced a bitter smile. I grew up within palace walls, only returning to the Marquis of Yongni's estate upon reaching my coming-of-age ceremony. Never stepping beyond the inner courtyard, how could I have had any opportunity to meet any man? Besides, I am not the frivolous sort. How could I? How could I privately pledge my heart to anyone? Tears welled in my eyes. It is my fault. Emperor Jin Yuan's voice softened considerably, tinged with soothing warmth, though a gentle smile slipped unconsciously to the corners of his mouth. I know full well, Wanner. You are the epitome of propriety and self-restraint. Who in the capital doesn't praise you as the model of a virtuous maiden? He paused briefly, his gaze probing my face with cautious inquiry. That newly crowned top scholar, I find his character, appearance, and learning all exceptional. He is a rare talent. What if I were to arrange a marriage for you both? Would that be acceptable? Your Majesty. My heart clenched, and the words nearly burst from my lips, filled with uncontrollable resistance. I refuse. I refuse. To simply give my body. Entrust my very life to a stranger I've never even seen. Overwhelming terror and shame sent a chill through my body. Closing my eyes, tears finally spilled down my cheeks as my voice carried a desperate resolve. Your Majesty. Please let Wanner endure this alone. I'll endure it. I'll endure it until it passes. Wanner. Wanner would rather die of exhaustion on this very bed. The moment the words left my lips, that bone-numbing tingling surged back, the wicked fire within me burning even brighter. My vision blurred, unable to make out his features, yet my nose distinctly caught the crisp, steady scent emanating from him. Ambergris. This imperial aura, which usually only accentuated his majestic and untouchable presence, now became the most deadly temptation to me. An uncontrollable urge roared through my veins, demanding I draw closer, ever closer. Yet the last remnants of my reason clung to me desperately. He was the benefactor who twice pulled me back from the brink of death, the elder who had treated me like his own niece for years. How could I? How could I defile him with such unworthy thoughts? I bit down hard on my lower lip, summoning every ounce of strength to resist the raging desire within. Before losing control entirely, I thrust my hand out and shoved him away, simultaneously clenching my jaw so tightly I bit down on my tongue, hoping the searing pain would bring back a shred of clarity. Yet the expected agony never came. In a split second, a warm hand slipped between my teeth. Ugh! Caught off guard, my teeth sank deep into the warm palm, instantly tasting the heavy metallic taste of blood. The next moment, the world spun, and I fell into a solid embrace. That familiar ambergris scent instantly enveloped me, suffocatingly close. Above my head came his low, hoarse voice, tinged with an almost imperceptible pain, yet each word struck my heart with clarity. If no one else is acceptable, then what about me? Am I acceptable? The taut string in my mind snapped with a sharp twang. The instant I surrendered resistance, overwhelming desire engulfed me like a tidal wave. My body drained of strength, I sank limply into his embrace, like a helpless young beast, instinctively rubbing and probing clumsily against him, yearning for some comfort I couldn't even name. My hands tore frantically, no longer distinguishing his dragon robe from my silk gown. Cloth lay scattered, our sashes tangled together, just as we were now, inextricably bound. The more I struggled, the more stubborn the knot became. My trembling fingers couldn't untie it, couldn't break free. Shame and frustration welled up, tears instantly filling my eyes. Yet above my head came a soft chuckle, its resonance clear in my ears. His warm breath brushed my hair, his voice low and steady, tinged with an almost imperceptible indulgence. It was I who taught Warner to write. Long fingers, replacing my flustered grasp, gently touched the tangled knot. Warner's horsemanship and archery, he paused, his fingers tightening slightly. The stubborn knot gave way with a soft click, the sash slipping silently to the ground. Were also taught by me. He said no more. Yet those deep, dark eyes lowered, their gaze heavy upon my face, stirring depths of shadow and heat I'd never seen before. Those unfinished words, like stones tossed into a lake, sent vast ripples through my chaotic, dazed heart. I seemed to grasp his unspoken meaning in an instant. This final lesson, the most secret, most soul-shaking matter, was meant to be taught by him, personally. When I opened my eyes again, the sky was already bright. The room was warm and cozy, the faint, familiar scent of dragon's breath incense still lingering. My body felt clean and fresh, not a trace of stickiness left. But the thought of last night. I must have called for water countless times. My face flushed crimson in an instant. Fortunately, Emperor Jin Yuan was absent. At this hour, he should be attending the morning court session in the Golden Throne Hall. I tried to push myself up to get out of bed, but my legs gave way, and I plopped down onto the floor. Just then, Xiang'er burst through the door. "Miss. You're fine. Thank goodness." She threw herself at me, sobbing, tears streaming down her face. "Last night, Nanny Zhang insisted I go to the storeroom to inventory the gifts received for your coming-of-age ceremony. Just as I was counting them, someone locked the storeroom door from the outside. I knew something was terribly wrong. It must have been Her Imperial Highness the Consort Shu trying to harm you." I shouted myself hoarse and pounded until my hands were sore, but no one answered. Finally, Eunuch Chao sent someone to let me out. Eunuch Chao told me that you'd suffered a slight fright and rested in Qianqing Palace last night, instructing me to come attend to you this morning. Xiang'er spoke while wiping tears with her sleeve. Her gaze swept over my neck, her voice suddenly catching. Her eyes widened in shock. Mistress. What's this on your neck?" She pointed at the crimson marks on my neck as if she'd seen a ghost, her voice cracking. Did you sleep here last night? This isn't His Majesty's." She was too terrified to finish the sentence. "Did you bring clean clothes?" I cut her off, my voice tinged with urgency. I did." She hadn't recovered from the shock. "Hurry and help me change." I steadied myself on the bedside rail, my legs still trembling slightly. "We must leave immediately." But Eunuch Chao is waiting outside." Xiang'er's face had gone pale, her voice quivering. "Don't worry." I took a deep breath, forcing my voice steady. "He won't stop me." I pushed open the heavy palace doors. Eunuch Chao was indeed standing there waiting. "Oh, Lady Wan has awakened." He beamed, his eyes crinkling with a smile. "The master was thinking of you and specially ordered the kitchen to prepare your favorite pastries. Shall I escort you to the front pavilion to enjoy them? The cherry blossoms are in full bloom there. Sit by the window, and you can see the entire garden in bloom." "Eunuch Chao," I interrupted him, my tone urgent, "would you kindly arrange a carriage to take me back to the Marquis of Yoni's residence immediately?" "Oh dear. The smile on Eunuch Chao's face stiffened. The master never ordered your release, but he didn't order my detention either, did he? I feigned slight anger, raising my voice. Well, no, he certainly didn't. Eunuch Chao rubbed his hands, looking troubled. Then by preventing my departure, aren't you defying his lordship's will? I seized his words, refusing to yield an inch. Oh dear, this servant dares not bear such blame. Eunuch Chao waved his hands repeatedly, forced to concede. Very well, very well. This servant will arrange a carriage for you immediately. He sighed helplessly, then hurriedly added before turning away, shall I pack your breakfast in a box for you to take? You can eat it in the carriage. The master personally supervised its preparation. Every dish is kept warm on little stoves, just waiting for you to rise and enjoy it. Please eat something, don't disappoint the master's kindness. The carriage slowly rolled out through the heavy archway of the Chaowu Gate. Outside, the hushed whispers of several young eunuchs drifted intermittently into the carriage. It's truly strange. Isn't His Majesty usually the most intolerant of heat? Even in the dead of winter, he finds the underfloor heating stifling. Why did Qianqing Palace request so much silver thread charcoal last night? Silence! How dare you gossip about the master's affairs? Mind your own business. Leaning against the carriage wall, my thoughts in turmoil, I silently opened the exquisite rosewood food box beside me. Jade green soft cakes, golden threaded rolls, Yunnan ham pastries, crab roast soup dumplings, osmanthus pudding. Each delicacy, exquisitely crafted, was precisely my favorite flavor. The portions were neither too much nor too little, each bite-sized piece perfectly designed for a single mouthful. My fingers trembled slightly as I picked up a warm jade green soft cake and gently placed it in my mouth. The familiar, sweet flavor melted on my tongue, carrying a warmth straight to my heart. Yet, without warning, my eyes grew hot and instantly filled with tears. This taste instantly transported me back to the official road outside Yi City many years ago. Back then, the sudden loss of my parents had filled my young self with terror. On the journey back to the capital, I cried incessantly, trembling with fear and unease. The soldiers escorting us were all rough-and-tumble types. Faced with a 5-year-old orphan, terrified out of her wits, unable to sleep night after night, stubbornly turning away food offered to her mouth, they were utterly helpless. It was he who lifted me onto his horse, holding me tightly against his chest. Then, as if by magic, he produced a jade green soft cake. Carefully breaking off a small piece, he brought it to my tightly pressed lips, coaxing me with clumsy patience. Good girl, open your mouth. Try this. It's sweet. Back at the mansion, everything was quiet, as if nothing had ever happened. Xiang'er, seeing my puzzled expression, whispered in explanation, Miss, Eunuch Chao said that after His Majesty saved you yesterday, he quietly took you away through the side gate. None of the guests at the front were disturbed. I told the servants you drank too much and caught a chill, so you'd retired to your chambers. They didn't suspect a thing. Originally, the Empress Dowager's people tried to force their way in to see you. But then news suddenly spread that Prince Ning had fallen into the Qinyi pool and drowned. The scene instantly descended into chaos, and they couldn't spare any attention for this matter afterward. Also, she leaned closer to my ear, her voice even lower, Nanny Zhang suffered a sudden illness last night and passed away. I snorted coldly. Humph. After causing such a huge mess, how could her master not silence her immediately? Xiang'er looked at me with heartfelt concern. Miss, you've suffered such injustice. You absolutely must have His Majesty vindicate you. Enough, Xiang'er, I interrupted, still shaken. One was his consort, the other his only son. What am I? Just an orphan girl with no parents, how could I expect him to stand up for me? It was precisely because I was forced into the crown princess's position that I invited this deadly peril. From now on, we'll shut ourselves away and live our quiet lives. I won't wade into the palace's murky waters again. But miss, you and the emperor were. Xiang'er grew anxious. Xiang'er. I cut her off decisively. Remember this, nothing happened last night. Lock down the courtyard where the incident occurred. We'll move to Fenghe Courtyard from now on. As for the maids and servants in the mansion, except for the elderly ones my parents left behind, find some excuse to send the rest away to be sold. The following month, I enjoyed a rare stretch of quiet days. Following my instructions, Seongir told everyone I was ill. The mansion gates were shut tight, no visitors were received. I dug a small fish pond in the courtyard, built a pavilion in the grove for tea, and even set aside a plot to grow melons, fruits, and vegetables. Oh, and I picked up a stray cat to keep, naming it Little Fox. All the things I couldn't do while confined in the palace, I indulged in them thoroughly during this time. The noble consort repeatedly sent messengers summoning me back to court, but Seongir always turned them away with the excuse that my health is truly poor. That night, I had Seongir move the bamboo bed beneath the ancient banyan tree in the courtyard. The early spring breeze caressed my face, carrying a faint chill. Wrapped in a light blanket, I cradled the warm little fox in my arms. Breathing in the crisp air, I lay back and counted the stars one by one. Unconsciously, memories of my childhood days in Yeqing drifted back. Those were truly carefree times. Truth be told, I'd never been the prim and proper type since I was little. Climbing roofs, diving into rivers to catch fish, I never missed a chance to get into mischief. Lost in these thoughts, a smile crept onto my lips. Warner seems to be living quite comfortably these days. A deep, steady male voice suddenly sounded beside my ear. Little Lee, startled, let out a meow and darted out of my arms, vanishing in the blink of an eye. I hurriedly tried to rise from the bed to pay my respects, Your Majesty. But he caught my arm and gently pressed me back down onto the bed. He bent down to pick up the slipped blanket, repositioning it over me with a hint of reproach in his tone. How is that Seongir girl attending to you? It's so chilly at night, yet she lets her mistress lie out here catching the breeze? Doesn't she know to advise you? Don't blame her, Your Majesty, I hastened to explain. She tried several times, but I wouldn't listen. Emperor Jin Yuan shot me a resigned glance and ordered, Chao Dishing, have them fetch some charcoal braziers and light them in the courtyard. Your Majesty. Why? Have you come? I asked hesitantly. Emperor Yuan seemed almost amused by my reaction. Did you intend to hide away forever if I hadn't come? I wasn't hiding, I replied, my eyes darting away as my voice trailed off. You weren't hiding, he remarked, surveying the courtyard with a hint of teasing in his voice. Merely locked the mansion gates and hid away in the courtyard, living it up. Barely a month has passed, and you've dug a fish pond, built a tea pavilion, even planted crops? Give it a few more days, and will you have chicken coops and pigsties ready too? Planning to become completely self-sufficient here in the Yongi Marquis estate, never to leave again? Yes. That was the plan. I muttered softly, my voice clearly lacking conviction. Warner, Emperor Jin Yuan's smile faded as he spoke earnestly, I spared you because of your youth. Facing such events so suddenly would be too much to bear. That's why I allowed you to hide for a while, to recover. But it's been over a month now, he said, his gaze fixed on me. Had I not come seeking you, did you truly intend to hide away here forever? I wasn't hiding from you. My face flushed, my voice dropping lower. I just felt I had no face to show you. His mention of that night made my cheeks burn fiercely. I thought, if enough time passed, perhaps you would forget it, I explained softly, unable to meet his gaze. Then when I came to see you again, maybe it wouldn't be so unbearable. Forget that incident? Emperor Jin Yuan's expression darkened. Are you planning to become one of those heartless women who turn their backs once they've put on their clothes? No. That's not it. His words stung like ice, sending a chill through me. I hurriedly protested, you saved me once more, and helped me in that way. I truly cherish your kindness. Your Majesty possesses the riches of the four seas. You lack nothing. I truly don't know how to repay this debt. I bit my lip, as if gathering resolve, and held up 3 fingers. But I swear to you, this kindness I shall never forget. From now on, whatever you command, even if it means walking through mountains of blades or seas of fire, I shall never refuse. He remained silent, only gazing at me with profound intensity. Within those bottomless eyes, emotions churned that I could not decipher. The courtyard under the night sky was eerily still, so quiet one could almost hear the drum-like thud of our hearts within our chests. I knew he was struggling to restrain himself. He had never been a man of gentle temperament. As the ruler of a nation, holding absolute power over life and death, I'd witnessed his ruthless precision on the battlefield and heard tales of his thunderous justice against treacherous ministers in the court. Now, he resembled a lion driven to fury, radiating terrifying pressure as if poised to devour someone at any moment. Are you angry? I tentatively reached out, my fingertips cautiously brushing against his tightly clenched fist. The veins on the back of his hand bulged taut, yet the instant my touch grazed him, he snapped his hand back, seizing my fingers in an iron grip. His palm was broad and thick, burning hot, radiating an irresistible force. Warner, he finally sighed deeply, his voice carrying an indescribable weariness and struggle. What am I to do with you? He did not look at me, his gaze seeming to pierce through the night, fixed on some distant place. Yesterday, I went to the Western Hills. Sat all night before your father's grave. He paused, his voice low and hoarse. Throughout my life, I ask my conscience, I have not betrayed the late emperor's trust, nor have I failed the common people. But only to him do I feel indebted. 10 years ago, I failed to protect him. His voice held immense, suppressed pain. 10 years later, I failed to protect you either. You've protected me perfectly. My heart ached, and I hurriedly interrupted him. Even a blood uncle couldn't have been as thorough as you. But He abruptly cut me off, his grip on my hand tightening suddenly with such force it stung slightly. He pressed my hand forcefully against his chest. The powerful, vigorous beat of his heart pounded fiercely through the fabric, crashing against my palm. I no longer wish to be your uncle. I froze in place as if struck by a bolt of lightning. My mind went blank, and I was so shocked I forgot to breathe. After that, he never came personally again. Instead, Eunuch Chow became a frequent visitor, each time bearing gifts. Judging by the pace, it seemed the emperor's private treasury was emptying its novelty items suitable for a young lady into my quarters. Along with his personal chef, who prepared 3 meals a day, each more elaborate than the last, all featuring my favorite dishes. I obliged by sending numerous gifts in return. Today I embroider sachets, tomorrow I make a handkerchief, and have Eunuch Chow carry them back. At least it shows some thought. Oh, and there's one more major development. Consort Shu's family estate has been confiscated. Her father, the Minister of Works, was thrown into prison for embezzlement. I heard she knelt outside the imperial study for 3 full days, but Emperor Jin Yuan refused to see her. I suppose this is the account he promised me back then. That day, to protect my reputation, he couldn't directly target Consort Shu. Now, finding a pretext to bring down her family, that strikes right at her Achilles' heel. He's always been like this, ruthless and unforgiving, leaving no room for mercy. My heart churned with mixed emotions. I felt touched, for he had avenged me after all. Yet a faint chill crept in, mingled with fear. She was the consort who bore him an heir. And he could be so ruthless. What about me? How long could an emperor's favor truly last? Each spring, the capital erupted in celebration, the spring banquet. In past years, confined within the palace and tightly controlled by Matron Li, I rarely had the chance to attend. This year, back at the Yongyi Marquis' residence, I unexpectedly received an invitation to the spring banquet. The invitation came from the princess's residence. According to news gathered by Xianger, this spring banquet was actually a venue for selecting consorts for His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. Speaking of Xiao Jing, he had been remarkably quiet lately. When the consort Shu's family faced trouble, he didn't rush to plead before the emperor. Instead, he petitioned Emperor Jin Yuan to be assigned to the 6 ministries for rotational training in state affairs. This was unlike him. He was always quick to flare up. When had he ever shown such restraint? I suspect he must have received guidance from a wise mentor. Since this banquet was for selecting a consort for the crown prince, I naturally intended to avoid it as much as possible. Just as I was about to send Xianger to decline the invitation, Eunuch Chow arrived first, bearing a personal note from Emperor Jin Yuan himself. Unfolding it, I saw bold, vigorous characters whose content made my face flush. Having not seen you for many days, my heart yearns for you. I earnestly hope you will attend the banquet. Such exquisite calligraphy paired with such sappy words truly left me both amused and exasperated. Accompanying the letter were the garments for the banquet, a snow-white silk robe embroidered with silver thread and plum blossoms, and a headpiece of jade paired with red agate. The ensemble radiated an elegant yet playful charm, perfectly capturing the latest fashion among the capital's noble ladies. Xiang'er stood nearby, her lips pressed into a smile. "Look, miss. These clothes and jewels are all your favorite styles." Well, it seemed this spring banquet was impossible to avoid. On the day of the banquet, Xiang'er sat me down at the dressing table and began meticulously preparing me. "Look at this cloud curl bun I've styled for you, miss," Xiang'er chattered as she worked, "paired with the headdress His Majesty bestowed. Doesn't it make you more ethereal than a fairy? If you ask me, Shen Yuan'er can't hold a candle to you. You're the most exquisite beauty in all the capital. It's all because Consort Shu kept you hidden away before, never letting you show your face, only spreading tales of your talents. You have no idea how awful the rumors are out there," Xiang'er continued indignantly. "Behind your back, they say you're dull and boring, and your looks, well, downright ugly. You silly girl, it's just the blind leading the blind." I chuckled and tapped Xiang'er's nose. "Don't go spreading nonsense about being the capital's most beautiful. Besides, whether I'm pretty or dull, who are they to judge?" I smiled reassuringly at her. "All I want is to live comfortably with my dear Xiang'er." The moment I stepped through the gates of the Grand Princess's residence, the overwhelming aura of opulence was truly dazzling. It even outshone the chambers of the imperial consorts in the palace. Truly befitting the beloved eldest princess cherished by the late emperor, the elder sister of Emperor Jin Yuan, such favor, such grandeur, unmatched anywhere in the capital. The palace maid guiding us moved with light steps, leading me through several layers of ornate gates and around a miniature landscape of rockeries and greenery, until we finally reached today's gathering place, the peony garden. Within the garden, rare and exquisite peonies of every hue vied for attention, their sweet fragrance filling the air. My gaze was swiftly drawn to a particular spot within the garden. There, a group of jewel-adorned noblewomen gathered like stars surrounding the moon, crowding around a young lady clad in a sapphire blue brocade robe. Encircled by them, the girl possessed almond-shaped eyes and a red dot between her brows, radiating a dazzling beauty. Such a striking beauty, able to draw so many noble ladies into her orbit, who else could it be but Shen Yuan, whose fame echoed throughout the capital? No wonder she had Xiao Jing utterly spellbound, completely lost in her spell. I had no desire to join the commotion. My gaze wandered through the garden until it settled on the western corridor, where a wisteria trellis bloomed in full splendor, a serene oasis amidst the bustle. Pulling Xiang'er along, I made my way over and found a spot beneath the trellis to sit. No sooner had I settled than a maid appeared silently, offering delicate tea and pastries. Ever since that incident at the coming-of-age banquet, I'd grown exceedingly cautious about outside food, never daring to eat anything lightly. Keeping my expression neutral, I lifted the teacup, feigning a sip at my lips. No sooner had I set it down than a palace attendant announced in a loud voice, "Her Highness the eldest princess is arriving." The once bustling peony garden instantly fell silent. A radiant beauty in court attire glided gracefully into view. Her almond-shaped eyes bore a striking resemblance to Emperor Jin Yuan, yet they held an additional allure uniquely feminine. This was the late emperor's most beloved legitimate princess, the elder sister of the current Emperor Yuan of Jin. Court ladies swiftly arranged the main seat at the garden's center, with gauze canopies erected on either side to shield her from the sun. A line of palace attendants and eunuchs immediately stepped forward, some brewing tea, others fanning, standing orderly at attention on both sides. The noble ladies immediately composed themselves, taking their seats on either side with proper decorum. The eldest princess's gaze swept slowly across the garden, finally settling upon me. "Oh." Her eyebrows arched slightly, her voice tinged with interest. "Whose daughter is this? That white jade plum blossom hairpin atop her head is quite unique." I paused slightly, then rose promptly, performing a standard court bow according to palace protocol. "This humble maiden is Lin, one of the Yoni Marquis' household, paying respects to Your Highness the Princess. May Your Highness enjoy boundless health and prosperity." "So you are the Lin family's girl." The princess's gaze lingered on me for a moment. Your mastery of court etiquette is quite proficient." "Your Highness flatters me," I replied respectfully, head bowed. "I merely spent some time in the palace during my youth, thanks to the kindness of the noble consort." Observing the lady's demeanor daily, I absorbed their manners by osmosis, barely scratching the surface. You do have a way with words. Stop standing there. Return to your seat. Is she Lin Wan? Everyone says she's dull and uninteresting, with nothing special about her looks. But looking at her now, she's not a bit worse than Miss Shin. The noble ladies lowered their voices, whispering among themselves. Shin Yuaner's face lit up with a sweet smile as her voice softened. I've often heard people speak of Sister Lin. Seeing you today, I realize how truly lovely you are. I'm so envious, Yuaner. But... Her gaze casually swept over the untouched tea and pastries before me, her tone tinged with just the right amount of concern. Are you feeling unwell, sister? The princess specially prepared these fine delicacies, yet you haven't touched a single bite? At these words, the eldest princess seated at the head of the table indeed furrowed her brows, her expression darkening slightly. Oh? Could it be that the delicacies from my palace are not to your liking? I hastily bowed my head, my voice respectful and submissive. Your Highness, please do not be angry. Your refreshments are truly the finest. It's just that since childhood, I've suffered from a certain ailment that makes me easily indisposed by many foods. I dare not readily partake of outside offerings. It is certainly not my intention to be critical of your Highness's kindness. Shin Yuan laughed softly, her slender jade-like fingers tapping the untouched teacup before me. But this pure tea... You cannot even touch it? Could it be? You fear it might not agree with you either? Her drawn-out tone carried clear implication. Humph. The princess, her anger turning to laughter, slammed her well-maintained hand heavily upon the table. Lin Wan, do you suspect this princess of poisoning you? Since nothing from my residence suits your palate, you need not attend future banquets. Your Highness, our young mistress. Xianger's eyes reddened with urgency as she tried to intercede, but I seized her wrist tightly, silencing her words. I drew a deep breath, suppressing my surging emotions, and bowed deeply. It is Wanner who has behaved improperly, causing your Highness displeasure. I willingly accept punishment. Very well. Since you know you are at fault, kneel here before me and reflect deeply. The eldest princess's voice was icy. The spring noon sun already carried a scorching intensity. Kneeling upright on the courtyard's blue stone slabs, cold sweat soon beaded on my forehead. My vision darkened in waves, and a sudden wave of nausea washed over me, robbing me of consciousness. When I awoke, I had been moved to a soft couch in the inner chamber. A court physician knelt before the hall, reporting. What exactly is wrong with her? The princess's voice carried a hint of impatience. The physician bowed even lower, his voice clear. Your Highness, Miss Lin. She has a pulse of joy. She is nearly 2 months along. What? The princess sprang to her feet, rushing to the bedside in a few strides. Her finger trembled as she pointed at me. Lin Wan. How dare you? How dare you conceive before marriage? You were raised in the palace, educated under the strictest court regulations. You intend to trample the entire imperial family's honor into the dirt. Speak! Who is that scoundrel who bedded you without a matchmaker? The chamber fell deathly silent. A flicker of triumph flashed in Shin Yuaner's eyes. She stepped forward gracefully, her voice as gentle as ever, yet her words cut like a dagger. Your Highness, please calm your anger. When Miss Lin was in the palace, the matron's discipline was so strict that private meetings would have been as difficult as climbing to the heavens. She shifted her tone, feigning thoughtfulness, however. I do recall an old matter. I heard that on the day of Miss Lin's coming-of-age ceremony, His Highness Prince Ning drank himself into a stupor and tragically drowned in the lake. After that, Miss Lin claimed illness and remained confined to her quarters for a full month. She covered her mouth with a light laugh, yet her gaze coiled around me like a venomous snake. Oh my, could it be? This child is Prince Ning's posthumous offspring? Lying on the bed, I met her false smile with icy coldness, a chill piercing my very soul. So Shin Yuaner was involved in the events of that coming-of-age day. Of course, only by utterly destroying me could she rightfully claim the position of crown princess. The child's father. I forced myself to sit up, my gaze sweeping over the furious princess and the smug Shin Yuan. My voice was firm and decisive. Is not the Prince of Ning? Oh. Shen Yuan raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise before shifting to a knowing expression. She covered her mouth and laughed. So you mean His Royal Highness the Crown Prince? Oh dear, that's even more impossible. Brother Jing personally told me he and you have never crossed paths. They're complete strangers. You mustn't make such reckless accusations. Miss, how dare they slander like this? This child is clearly... Xiang'er nearly blurted out in panic, but I pressed her lips shut. Shen Yuaner strolled leisurely, savoring my pallid face. Her voice was light as a feather, yet laced with deadly venom. Truth be told, whether this adulterer is Prince Ning or some other lowly dog. Miss Lin, your premarital loss of virtue and secret pregnancy are undeniable facts. According to our dynasty's laws, a woman who defiles the palace and brings shame upon her family must either be drowned in a pond or have her hair shorn to become a nun. Sister Lin, which path do you choose? Considering you are the sole survivor of the late Marquis of Yoni, this palace shall spare your life. The eldest princess waved her hand in command. Go! Bring a bowl of safflower decoction and dispose of this bastard child. Then send her to Xian Hall. Who dares to kill my child? A voice thundered with fury from beyond the palace doors as Emperor Jin Yuan strode in. The entire chamber froze in terror, bodies crashing to the floor in a heap of kneeling figures, not daring to draw a breath. Without a glance at the others, he marched straight to the bedside, shielding my weakened form behind him. Sister, his voice was low, yet carried a bone-chilling coldness. You sought to kill my own flesh and blood with your own hands, then send my woman to become a nun? Your Majesty. The Princess Regent was forced back half a step by this sudden accusation. I truly did not know it was your Majesty's royal offspring. She abruptly pointed at Shen Yuan, who lay limp on the floor. She claimed this child was the illegitimate offspring of Prince Ning. She deceived me. Shen Yuan stared at Emperor Jin Yuan shielding me as if she had seen a ghost. Her pupils dilated with extreme terror as she muttered repeatedly, impossible. This can't be. How could it be His Majesty's? How? How could this happen? No. No. Emperor Jin Yuan's icy gaze swept over the trembling crowd. His thin lips parted. Cast this vile servant who slandered my late consort into the imperial prison. Interrogate her thoroughly. I must see who gave her the audacity, and who instigated her behind the scenes. Your Majesty, the eldest princess steadied her composure, attempting to intercede. Shen Yuaner is, after all, the apple of Jinger's eye. While she erred in slandering Waner, did you not arrive in time? No great calamity befell us. To cast her directly into the imperial prison. Is this punishment not rather severe? Slandering Waner doesn't warrant imprisonment? Emperor Jin Yuan's gaze suddenly sharpened. But what if she slandered the Empress herself? The Empress? The princess's breath caught in her throat. You intend to crown her Empress? Her voice cracked with shock as she sprang to her feet. Enthroning an Empress is a matter of utmost gravity. Have you consulted the imperial clan or the court ministers? Humph! Emperor Yuan of Jin let out a bitterly cold snort, his gaze slicing through the princess like a blade. What unimaginable riches has the Duke of Jingguo promised my sister? That you would go to such lengths for them? How? He stepped forward, his imposing presence overwhelming. Are you so certain I shall never take a consort in this lifetime? That you must hastily stake your precious treasure on that future crown princess? He paused, the chill in his eyes nearly solidifying, it seems. In the matter of consort Shu, I was far too merciful. The princess seemed drained of strength, her voice softening. Ever since ascending the throne in youth, your Majesty devoted all your thoughts to state affairs. You seldom set foot in the harem and never showed any inclination to take a wife. I always believed your Majesty was naturally indifferent to romantic entanglements. She gave a bitter smile. Who would have thought you could go to such lengths for a mere young girl? Then again, our Shao family has produced lovers throughout the generations. How could your Majesty be the exception? This matter. I have been foolish. She bowed her head in resignation. I beg your Majesty, out of sisterly affection, to spare me this time. I shall go to the temple of 10,000 Buddhas of my own accord to pray for the Empress and the young prince she carries. Finally, allow me one last word. The Crown Prince. His talents are indeed ordinary, with no great achievements to his name. Yet these years, he has followed the rules without major transgressions. His daily demeanor of respectful obedience and virtuous conduct is evident to all. Changing the heir is a matter that shakes the very foundations of the state. Your Majesty. Even if you cherish the Empress deeply, you must think this through carefully. The Crown Prince's intellect is indeed mediocre, Emperor Jin Yuan sneered coldly, but this dutiful and virtuous, I fear it may not be entirely true. The future heir of Great Wei must naturally be born of the woman I cherish most. As for Xiao Jing, his tone was cold yet unquestionable. If he keeps his place, I shall grant him the title of a wealthy, leisurely prince. But if he dares harbor any unwarranted ambitions. His words trailed off, yet the intent to kill was already evident. Then do not blame me for showing no mercy. Chao Dixing, he bellowed, prepare the princess's belongings immediately. Send her to Wanfo Temple. The words exchanged between Emperor Jin Yuan and the princess stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me. I had always believed that, given my background, being granted one of the 4 consorts would be no slight. If they honored my father's past service and exceptionally elevated me to imperial consort, that would be a grace beyond measure. Yet never in my wildest dreams did I imagine he would directly proclaim me empress. Your Majesty, my voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. How could I possibly be worthy of the empress's throne? He drew me into his embrace, his chin resting lightly on my head. What? Does my Wanner not wish to be my lawful wife? He actually referred to himself as not I, the emperor. His words felt like a pebble, plopping into the lake of my heart and sending ripples out. Of course I want to, I just fear. What are you afraid of? His arms tightened around me, his tone unwavering and commanding. With me here, Wanner has nothing to fear. I will pave the way for our child. But what if it's a princess? My heart raced, and the words slipped out. A princess? He chuckled softly. Who decreed that this empire could only be passed to a son? 2 months later, dressed in splendid robes, I stood beside Emperor Jin Yuan as the masses paid homage, formally becoming his empress. During the ceremony, Xiao Jing knelt at my feet, respectfully addressing me as mother. Yet I didn't miss the flash of venom in his eyes. Seems this brat hasn't given up. Who knows what schemes he's brewing now? No wonder. The woman he once discarded like a worn-out shoe had transformed into his legitimate mother, carrying his father's legitimate heir. And him? Overnight, he plummeted from the exalted crown prince to a mere illegitimate son. Faced with such a crushing fall, how could he not seethe with hatred? The imperial wedding celebrations had barely concluded when the grand day arrived for the ancestral rites at the imperial ancestral temple. But as the rites began, a demonic wind suddenly howled from the heavens, whistling fiercely. The sacrificial incense was blown out repeatedly. The chief astrologer of the imperial observatory fell to his knees with a thud, his voice trembling. Your Majesty! Such an omen from the heavens. It is a most dire sign of ill fortune. At that moment, Xiao Jing burst from the crowd, shouting, Father Emperor! Your son has urgent news that must be reported. Oh! What is it? Emperor Jin Yuan's voice grew solemn. Your Majesty! Shen Yuani, the legitimate daughter of the Duke of Jingguo, was born amidst auspicious clouds descending from heaven. The Grand Master of the imperial rituals personally declared her fate, stating she possesses the heaven-born phoenix destiny. Yet now, the position rightfully belonging to the true phoenix has been usurped by a counterfeit. Worse still, the genuine phoenix has been falsely accused and imprisoned. This has provoked heaven's wrath, manifesting these portents as warnings. Only by restoring the true phoenix to her rightful place and sacrificing the false one to heaven can we appease heaven's anger and ensure the stability of our realm. Xiao Jing finished, glaring at me with eyes like poisoned blades. Xiao Jing! Emperor Jinyuan's voice was bone-chillingly cold. Are you implying that my empress is a false phoenix? Father! Every word spoken by your son is true. It is all for the sake of the empire, for the foundation laid by our ancestors. Xiao Jing stood with righteous indignation. Your Majesty! The Crown Prince speaks the truth. The Duke of Jingguo hurriedly stepped forward and knelt. When my daughter Yuan was born, auspicious signs descended from the heavens. The Grand Master of Ceremonies personally issued the Phoenix Mandate. Many in the capital knew of this at the time. For the sake of the Empire, Your Majesty must restore the true Phoenix to her rightful place and sacrifice the false one to the heavens. Officials loyal to the Duke of the State Protection knelt en masse, their voices echoing in unison. I stared coldly at Xiao Jing and demanded, Xiao Jing, you insist I am the false Phoenix and Shen Yuan are the true one? Where is your evidence? The fate chart personally endorsed by the Grand Master of the Imperial Rituals back then is irrefutable proof. Xiao Jing wore a smug expression, as if victory were already his. Very well. If this Empress can produce evidence proving that this Shen Yuan you speak of is not the true Phoenix at all, I fixed my gaze on his eyes, enunciating each word, then you are slandering the Empress Dowager of the current dynasty. Do you know what crime that constitutes? Xiao Jing seemed cornered, stiffening his neck as he retorted, if Her Majesty truly produces irrefutable proof that Yuaner is not the true Phoenix, then the son. This son shall voluntarily relinquish the Crown Prince's title and be demoted to commoner. But if Her Majesty cannot produce evidence. A fierce glint flashed in his eyes, then for the sake of the Empire and its people, Her Majesty must immolate herself as a sacrifice to the heavens to atone before the realm. No sooner had he finished speaking than guards dragged Shen Yuaner forward. Though haggard in her clothes and tatters, her eyes blazed with astonishing ambition and an unyielding determination. I smiled faintly, my gaze sweeping the room, since this is a decree from the Grand Master of Rites, why not? Invite the venerable elder himself to speak. The Grand Master has been traveling abroad, how could he possibly? Shen Yuan instinctively protested. This old man might serve as a witness. A hoarse yet clear voice sounded as a white-bearded Taoist priest stepped slowly from behind the altar. This old man observed celestial phenomena several nights ago and detected unusual movements in the Phoenix star. I journeyed back to the capital through the night, and fortunately, I arrived in time. The Grand Master bowed to Emperor Jin Yuan and me. Grand Master, I asked, did you personally bestow the heaven-born Phoenix destiny upon the eldest daughter of the Duke of the State's household back then? Indeed I did, the immortal nodded, stroking his beard. That young girl was as delicate as a carved jade figurine, with a naturally blushing red mole between her brows, truly delightful. I calculated her destiny and confirmed it was indeed the boundless fortune of a Phoenix destiny. There can be no mistake. Mother! The immortal has personally confirmed it. Shen Yuan is the true Phoenix. What more can you say? Please, Mother. Go to your death. Xiao Jing's voice rose sharply with excitement, his face betraying uncontrollable elation. Don't rush, I said slowly. It's true she has the Phoenix destiny, but is she truly Shen Yuaner? The word struck like a thunderclap, silencing the entire hall. What do you mean, is she Shen Yuaner? Ridiculous! How could she not be Shen Yuaner? Xiao Jing roared, fury boiling over. Indeed, she is not Shen Yuaner, Tai Changjinren spoke slowly, his gaze settling on the fake Shen Yuaner's forehead with an all-knowing clarity. Though Shen Yuaner was but a newborn infant back then, this old man remembers clearly the single, naturally occurring vermilion mole between her brows. He turned to the deathly pale impostor, his tone calm yet carrying an undeniable authority. Young lady, this red mark on your forehead. It's painted on, isn't it? The pigment is peculiar, it doesn't fade even when wet. Why don't we try some strong liquor? See if it washes off? Nonsense. I am Shen Yuer. I am. The fake Shen Yuaner screamed like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, collapsing to the ground and struggling frantically. The guards paid no heed, snatching the wine jug from the altar and flinging its contents straight at her face. As the pungent liquid washed over her, the red mole between her brows swiftly dissolved. It transformed into a crimson, wine and lipstick-tinged liquid that streamed down her nose in a pitiful cascade, smearing half her face in a grotesque, comical mess. Fake! She's an imposter! House of the Duke of the State! How dare you! The crowd erupted instantly, shouts of shock and fury rising in waves. Let me in! Let me in. I have something to say. At that moment, a woman's shrill cries pierced the air from the outer perimeter of the altar. Guards escorted a girl clad in green, her face marred by a vicious diagonal scar, forward. The scar nearly split her face in two, a truly terrifying sight. Let her come forward to speak, Emperor Jin Yuan commanded in a deep voice. The green-clad girl threw herself before the throne, banging her head against the ground as she wailed, "Your Majesty! Empress! I beg you both to vindicate my young mistress." "Who is this young mistress of yours?" Emperor Jin Yuan inquired. "Your Majesty, my mistress, is the true legitimate daughter of the Duke of Jin's household, Shen Yuan." The girl wept heart-wrenchingly. "My mistress was raised at her maternal grandparents' home since childhood. A year ago, she received a letter from the Duke's residence ordering her return to the capital. We mistress and servant hurried back together. Along the way, we met an orphan girl who bore a slight resemblance to my young mistress. They hit it off and became sworn sisters, traveling together. But who could have imagined that when we passed Laojun Mountain, that venomous woman, she secretly laced our tea with poison and pushed us off the cliff. My mistress. She fell to her death right then and there." The girl sobbed, gasping for breath. "I was lucky, a hunter in the mountains saved me. I lay in bed for a full year before my bones healed enough to walk again. I crawled back to the capital just to expose this impostor and clear my mistress's name." "You mean that orphan girl? Is she her?" I pointed at the disheveled impostor, her face slaked with wine. "It's her. That's her. She claimed to be Li Shuanger. I'd recognize her even if she were turned to ashes." "Ha! So it was a mere substitute, a counterfeit." Emperor Jin Yuan's fury boiled over. He kicked Xiao Jing, who knelt nearby with a deathly pale face, sending him sprawling to the ground. "For such a lowly impostor? You dared force your own mother and the imperial heir within her to their deaths? I thought you were merely dull-witted, but never imagined you could be this vile. Since you've admitted it yourself, if this impostor isn't the true heir, then you shall request to be demoted to commoner status. Today, I shall grant your wish." At the words "common subject," Xiao Jing was struck as if by lightning, his reason snatched away in an instant. He leapt to his feet like a rabid beast, lunging at the limp, fake Xinyuer. Grabbing her hair, he slammed her head against the floor, cursing wildly, "You vile woman. You ruined me. What bullshit about being born with the phoenix's destiny? Pa, you're just a lowly orphan. If you hadn't bewitched me, Lin Wan would have been betrothed to me. Then I'd still be the high and mighty crown prince. It's all your fault. You're the scourge. Die. Just die." Shen Yuaner, Li Shuanger, beaten until her hair hung in tangled strands, her face a mess of wine and blood, looked like a raving lunatic. Suddenly, she burst into a shrill, maniacal laugh, spewing words no one could understand. "Blame me? What did I do wrong? Why is it that when others cross over, they become princesses or noble ladies? But when I crossed over, I was just a poor, destitute orphan? What's wrong with wanting a better future for myself?" That Shen Yuaner was a fool. A naive, innocent fool. She gave her heart away after just a few sweet words. Serves her right. Ha 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 ha. Half a year later, I safely gave birth to a little prince. Emperor Jin Yuan was overjoyed and personally named him Xiaoheng. On the day of Hunger's full moon celebration, the palace and its surroundings were adorned with festive lights and decorations. Emperor Jin Yuan issued an imperial edict proclaiming to the realm that this infant in swaddling clothes was hereby designated crown prince. Strangely enough, from a very young age, Hunger was exceptionally close to his father, clinging to him like a little shadow, practically wanting to grow attached to his father's very being. Even when his father presided over court deliberations, the little fellow insisted on tagging along. As ministers presented their petitions, he would sit quietly on a small stool beside the dragon throne, blinking his big eyes as he listened. By the time Hung reached 4 years old, his father simply set up a small writing desk for him in the imperial study. Just as he had once taught me, Emperor Jin Yuan would cradle the little Hunger on his lap, guiding his tiny hand stroke by stroke as he taught him to recognize characters and read. Hunger was a naturally bright child, learning with remarkable speed. Within just a few years, he had mastered the essentials of statecraft and governance with such proficiency that even his father often nodded in approval. Time flew by, and before we knew it, Hunger had turned 18. Shortly after his coming-of-age ceremony, Emperor Jin Yuan issued an abdication edict without hesitation, passing the throne to Hunger. On the second day after the new emperor's enthronement, an unassuming, plain carriage carried my husband and me as we slowly rolled out of the bustling city gates. Inside the carriage, he held my hand, his face softening with the relief of a burden lifted. "Warner," he murmured, "do you remember what you used to tinker with in your little courtyard? That fish pond, the tea pavilion, and the fruit and vegetable nursery you cherished so dearly?" I was gently stroking our little grandson, Ali, in my arms. Hearing this, I lifted my head, my eyes also brimming with laughter. "Of course I remember. In our new home in Yecheng," he said gently, a hint of pride in his voice, "I've recreated everything just as you remembered. Oh, and one more thing," he paused, a mischievous glint in his eyes, "I even set up the chicken coop and pigsty you used to talk about." I couldn't help but laugh, lifting the fluffy little kitten in my arms. "Then I'll move my daybed under that big banyan tree in the courtyard, to lie under the stars and bask in the sun." He pulled me closer, his chin resting on my hair, his voice low and indulgent. "Fine. Whatever you say. The story ends here. Thank you all for joining me. See you in the next chapter."